Howdy, howdy. We are live on a Friday night, taking a look back on Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, now that we've spent the entire month of July talking about it, the 5-episode chunk. So let's go back and talk about one big 20-episode chunk.
Yeah, the broad arcs of things and what worked and if anything didn't work and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. So a lot to talk about. Let's go ahead and get the show started. I'm Fathery.
This is Dave.
I'm Aaron.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 298th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek old and new. And tonight we are talking about Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, the whole darn thing. I think whenever we do like these season retrospectives, I always say like the whole damn thing, but for the Nickelodeon show, I turned it to darn. I did that when we did the season 1 thing back in.
But now you've undone
June.
your good work because
Yeah.
you explained it and you still use the.
This is not a Nickelodeon podcast. This is a
Oh.
Nickelodeon show that we talk about.
Why don't you just drop the F-bomb in there, Father?
I'll try to avoid that one, but
The new Greg Cox book that I'm reading that's Lost in Eternity with Gillian Taylor, like somebody doing research trying to figure out what happened to her. That character doesn't swear either because she doesn't want to accidentally swear on a podcast, so she just doesn't ever swear. You hear just like, "Oh darn!" You're like, "That's really weird." You hear somebody like say it like that.
That's right. It's the podcast that's like investigating. Is it investigating her disappearance? Or...
yeah,
Yes.
the true crime
cold case.
disappearance.
Right,
Yeah, the
right.
marine
It's
biologist.
really fun.
I think that is
They
a
do-
very cool premise, and if you say it ends up it pans out well, I want to check this book out.
I'm 3/4
Yeah.
into it, and it seems like it's really good so far. So.
Cool.
Aaron, we don't have like much news to talk about this week, so I kind of wanted to like ask you about that book in just a second.
Okay.
Real quick, just a little bit of housekeeping before we get into that, but I want to give a big thank you and shout out to the wonderful Tex-Trek Patreon supporters who make the show possible. So thank you so much. Starfleet Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Daw, Geek Filter, Quark Spar, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A., Joel Vallis, Benjinium, Arthur Lamoureux, and our anonymous supporters. We're going to have a Patreon watch party next week. If you're checking us out live, it'll be in about a week on August 17th, Saturday, August 17th. So we'd like to do one of these every month to celebrate with our patrons. And this month's episode will actually be selected by our Division 14 patron, Joel, who I every week I ask him if he's got it picked. But I think today, I think he'll let us know now what we're going to be watching. But
Oh, I like the dramatic mystery though. That's pretty cool.
The first
The
10 minutes of
cliffhanger.
every episode of Next Gen.
That's right. The what is it? Riker just said fire. Is that it in Best of Both
Yeah.
Worlds? Yeah.
if you just took the 47th second of every episode and just streamed those together, I wonder what that would. Someone edit that. I'd be curious.
You'd
But
think that fandom would have done it already, but yeah.
those watch parties are a lot of fun. It's always a great crowd that shows up, and you get to have like group Tex-Trek commentary over the episodes and join in, and so you can
We'll
you can
goof
come
along
in.
a little bit. We'll appreciate the moments that are like the best moments and the sincere moments. And
And what's
talk
cool
about-
about
go ahead.
Discord is that you can actually turn down us if you don't want to hear us talking. You
Oh,
can
yeah.
actually
That's
hear,
true.
I
That's
listen
hear
to
the
the
app.
episode.
You can.
Options.
You also have that option. So
And,
yeah.
and you know, Father, you've mentioned this before. There's an option if you're not feeling social at the moment and you want to just text. post your stuff in the chat. You can also obviously do that too.
If you want to have a text commentary, like Mike and Denise Okuda used to put on the DVDs back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
So this old school physical media enthusiast might recall that. But yeah, we really appreciate the patrons. So if you want to partake in that fun, you can sign up for the Patreon as little as $2 a month. If you can afford to be more generous, there's some additional perks as well. But anyone in the Patreon's invited to those monthly watch parties, and it's a lot of fun. And I should also remind everyone that these Prodigy Season 2 streams are also being distributed on Aaron's podcast, Drawn to Trek, part of the Trek Geeks Network. And Aaron, if you'd like to tell us about the Trek Geeks sponsor.
Yeah, it is Fansets, where you get your pins. So it is their tagline is like, our pins have character. So they are characters as well.
These are they all Star Trek pins?
No, they do have other
pop culture kind of
property. Yeah, and I don't remember off the top of my head.
DC
I know I did
license. They've been like some DC stuff.
Yeah.
I had some what is it, Irwin Allen stuff. I got like a time tunnel pin with the tick logo, the logo from the time travel project. So
very
that's cool. Hey, you get 10% off if you say Trek Geeks, all one word in caps, in the coupon code area.
Trek Geeks, all caps.
Yep.
Nice.
I mentioned we didn't have much news to discuss before we get into our Prodigy Season 2 discussion. But there's the San Diego Comic-Con stuff, like, that big news. We did a stream a couple weeks ago on YouTube breaking that down. If people listening want to check that out, you can find that on YouTube. Me and Aaron both had a lot of thoughts on things like the Lower Decks trailer, the Section 31 trailer, that clip from Strange New Worlds, the news about Robert Picardo and Starfleet Academy. Dave, I don't know if you have any opinions on any of that. You wanna get on the record, but they dropped a lot of stuff on us.
Yeah. I'll just mention one or two things. What do you call it? Apologies, but Lower Decks still never quite became my thing, so I don't have any notable thoughts on that. But I thought the Section 31 trailer was interesting in that. I still can't quite tell intent. I haven't seen a full scene. It had a kind of pop energy to it that I kind of did like. The person in me who likes
music video.
Yeah, who likes heist movies and
that's true.
Putting the team together bit, or even like some goofy stuff like
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or anything like that was like, oh, that looks cool. Now, is there going to be any engagement with deeper Star Trek philosophy, concepts, maybe some self-analysis of, is Department 31 a good thing? Or is this really just going to be the kind of like, let's be bad guys, let's do a Suicide Squad riff? I still can't tell. Did y'all come to any conclusions?
No, I don't think it feels like it's headed towards there might be some like necessary evil conversation, but
we felt a little better when we saw that there was a half white, half black dude in the club in the background. We were like, this doesn't really look that Trek. We got one Delton and one Vulcan, but we were like, oh look, it's a half white, half black in the crowd.
Do we have a name for that famous, infamous species?
Charon was the name of the planet.
Yeah, I think it was the. I think that's what they called the Mego doll. Was like I think there was a Charon.
Okay. Yeah.
But
that is a wild and deep cut. I would actually love if they threw in some weird stuff like that, or if the plot, heavily involved a really kind of esoteric Trek bit.
Dave, but before you move on from Section 31, just I did have a conversation with my friend Thad from the Infinite Diversity podcast, part of the BQN network, at Tyrannicus on Twitter. He's a great follow. But I had a conversation with him a few days ago, and he pointed out something I think is a good point, that San Diego Comic-Con trailer is the trailer made for the mass audiences, and on Star Trek Day, we'll get a trailer for the Trekkies that'll probably have more recognizable Star Trek stuff in it.
Right.
That's true. That could be.
it calls to mind the old teasers from back in the day where they would like really amp up that action vibe in the 80s or late 80s, early 90s. You know, like next time on an all new Star Trek, Riker's
Yeah.
pinned down. You know. That kind of vibe. So
Will
yeah,
the crew
like,
survive? Yes,
Yeah.
the
You
crew
know,
will
they
survive.
they put those on the TNG Blu-rays. They have the promos.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, it is a definite.
Somebody
slice of
did
an
edit
era.
together. Speaking of a supercut of just Star Trek, that thing like over and over again.
I love that. But yeah, I can't yet tell on that one. The Strange New Worlds clip, I had sort of an immediate reaction against it. It was
Really?
simultaneously a little too goofy, and I mean, actually, that's my simple explanation. I enjoyed watching the sort of more thoughtful video from Jesse Gender that was critiquing sort of more serious stuff in it. But I think until I know a little bit more about the episode, I can't quite fully engage with that level of criticism. I got to see what they're doing.
Right.
But the interesting
She even
thing
pointed out
was-
that might be a point of what we're seeing. That
Right,
it could be just
right.
to talk about that that actual issue.
And I will say this: I saw it. And by the way, just to clarify, we're of course talking about the clip where like a mission away team gets turned into genetic Vulcans temporarily, so that they can do whatever for whatever reason that they need to for the mission. So it's Pike and all the rest. And then it won't wear off. That's clearly the sort of the part of the episode's pitch. I happened to watch it a few days later with some of my coworkers at the comic shop I manage, who are more casual Trek fans, and and so we were talking about it for the Stores podcast. They both instantly liked that scene. They were just they were like, that's funny. It's got that Strange New Worlds energy and humor. And they were instantly on board. So it was interesting to just kind of look at it from a full Trekkie perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it, but I'm, certainly happy to wait and see what they're doing with it. I think
It clearly is the episode of the season that has to be about Spock and being goofy or something like that.
Right, it does seem like that is...
Yeah.
That's a thing.
It's like the Christmas specials for Doctor Who and whatever. It's like that. That's theirs.
I think even even the previous one where Spock became human was one that I had some issues with, and I felt was a missed opportunity to. Although it did have I think a very good thoughtful moment with his mom in it, and that's part of the storyline was great. But I also thought it was a missed opportunity to do a little bit more of I guess like a Dorothy Fontana style. Deeper, somewhat more. I get some humor, but a more respectful take as well on some Vulcan culture. I feel like they're kind of making it out so that really almost too 60s ish, where it's like, look how quaint and funny the Vulcans are, and I want a little bit of that deeper lore.
That's funny
stuff.
That's funny. I almost see that as it's like too modern, like MCU. Let's make everything goofy, kind of.
I mean, I think that's part of it. I think those things do overlap.
It's like they're taking some of the bad of both worlds and mixing that together. It's like
the worst of both worlds.
You take the classics and the modern and combine it, but only the good stuff, not the bad stuff.
Right.
I'm surprised that has not been a title yet for Lower Decks. The worst of both worlds.
yeah, that's something that needs to happen.
Maybe in season 5. But speaking of Trek comedy, when I saw that clip, I was thinking, wow, are they wanting Strange New Worlds to be kind of a live action comedy? After some of the season 2 episodes, which I love season 2, but I was thinking that when I saw that clip, and then we get the announcement they're actually going to develop a different live action comedy with Tawny Newsome at the helm, which we don't know much about, but.
Arguably Trek has had some of its most successful outings have had big doses of comedy. We all know Voyage Home was the highest moneymaker until Trek 09 came along, and Trek 09 has no shortage of humor. There's Tribbles, there's Piece of the Action. Now we've got Lower Decks. Strange New Worlds has kind of embraced some of the TOS tradition of larger, of comedic episodes, and there is a part of me that's a little bit concerned about that likes likes some humor in Trek, but doesn't want them to lean too hard. But you know,
It's only good because it's subtle or occasional. If it happens all the time, then
Right.
it's not special.
Yeah,
I think there is a caution to be had there.
do you know much about the premise of that one, Dave?
The Tawny Newsome one?
Yeah.
No.
It sounds like it might be set on Ryza. It's a
Right.
resort outside of the Federation, and the people working there, I guess, learned that their wacky adventures are being broadcast across the quadrant. So it almost sounds almost like a fake reality TV show, like set on Ryza, but it's going to be in that
Yeah.
post Picard, 25th century. So any live action actor, could show. And this also sounds like kind of like a cheaper show than if they did like Star Trek Legacy, so a half-hour comedy. So if you want to have adventures with, any of those TNG, DS9, Voyager actors, any of them could, show up, go on vacation, and be part of the wackiness.
Troy and Riker show up. That would be fun.
It sounds like, I guess, is there like a little Truman Show kind of vibe to
Yeah,
it too?
that's what I was thinking,
Like, did they
too.
not know previously that they were
No.
on
That's what it kind of. All we have is like that one little blurb, and it's like it's
Hmm.
in development. So who knows if it'll get picked up? But
Or what'll change by the time we actually see it.
I'm sure. let's give it a shot. But yeah, I'm again, like, I guess I'm the slightly more serious side of Trek is where my heart is. But I do love those comedic breaks though. So love the Lower Decks Strange New Worlds crossover. Truly great episode.
and we're also gonna have some of Tawny Newsome's writing talents involved in Starfleet Academy, which
Right.
they announced the inclusion of Robert Picardo. So
Yeah.
So many
I
people
think-
in that show.
I was excited. I think, and we're getting Jet Reno, so Tig, and stuff. So yeah, I liked
Janet
all of
Reno.
that stuff that I that I saw in there.
I was shocked that they actually cast Mary Wiseman to be in the Academy show. Like, who saw that coming?
For a minute, Father, I was like, wait, what are you
Wait.
playing with me?
Although by the time that they've kept announcing people, it's like maybe she won't be in it. It's like, who knows?
right. The ultimate bait and switch.
Yeah.
Well,
Tilly still hasn't found her place. She went to another job. She's a barista now on Ryza, and
She went back in time. She got an opportunity to head back.
but not much else in the way of news since San Diego. But Aaron, tell us about the latest Trek novel.
Well, first before that, there is Prodigy news, kind of.
Oh yeah. Talk about the Prodigy thing.
Yes. Okay, so we have organized another airplane banner, which will be happening August 15th at 12 a.m. That's right, nobody will be there. 12 p.m. On Sunset in front of Netflix. So if you're in LA and you want to stop in, we'll all be there. Aaron, Bonnie, me, a group of the LA away team. So we've got that, and we're also having them, and they don't know this yet. Because they tagged Netflix, so obviously they now know that this airplane is coming. But we also got them like a giant cookie, which apparently they are big sweets fans. So we got them like, it just says a Netflix Prodigy message on it. So
And this, can I ask, is this essentially a season 3 kind of
yes,
thing?
it's a please renew. Thank you very much for picking us up, and now please renew it.
Yeah, right on.
I mean, it worked the first time, so why not try?
Hashtag. She wrote out what the whole full message is. I think. 1 second here. There we go. No, it just says renew Star Trek Prodigy with a hashtag. So I'm sure it's something related to that. I don't know the full message.
Very cool.
It got funding within 12 hours, so it's not expensive either. That's the other thing. It's we're not like bilking people out of thousands of dollars to do this airplane thing.
We're not going to see you coming in next week with mirror shades on and living a high life.
That pilot has been waiting by his phone for like a year. Like, I hope those Star Trek people call me again.
Well, the good thing is now we have one place to send it. Before it was like over Apple, over YouTube. So it might stay there longer this time because it's only going one place.
That's cool.
that's
Some
kind of
grassroots, some old school grassroots Trek
Yes.
involvement.
And I think once Kate Mulgrew kind of called it out at the convention, it was sort of like, okay, I guess we have to do it.
Yeah.
So
When Jane
so
speaks,
that's exciting.
you better listen, or she'll two-vix you.
But see, she'll get excited about it again, and like she'll like post about it again, and like go to like conventions talking about it again. So that's fuel for her.
Yeah.
So I figure when that happens and like some cool photos or videos float around, this would also be a good thing for everyone to share and hype up and do all of that's our time to make some noise too.
Yep. And to remind people to actually watch the show. Because as much as this is very cool and it gets attention, it also like numbers speak. So
right.
It seems like it's doing well from what I can tell. I mean, we don't get a whole lot of direct information from Netflix.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a difficulty in the streaming era, but I guess you do what you can.
Yeah, somebody was talking about like, couldn't we just like consolidate all of them into like? It was basically it's like you're describing cable. It was just sort of like, yes, we could go back to cable just electronically. That would be good.
Yeah, it's so weird. We're on some kind of strange Ouroboros eating itself or infinity symbol that oh my god, Admiral Vance, is it? No, it was Kovich who had the infinity symbol. We're stuck inside the Kovich infinity symbol in the opening credits of Discovery, that version of it.
And then Ouroboros was also the name of the two-part Prodigy finale, so it all ties together full circle. That's the circle. That's the circle that the diviner is drawing in season 1.
Are we ready to jump into?
Oh, do you want to talk about the book, or is that you want to skip that?
I'm sorry. We were bouncing around. Yeah, please.
So just recently came out. I think on the 27th of July. Greg Cox wrote this book. It's set in 3 different time periods. There's the 2024 bit. There's 2269, and then there's, I don't remember the exact date, but it's like right after David Marcus has been killed.
Okay.
So
2285, I think.
Yeah, I think that's 85 or 86 or something. Yeah. And they all the pieces connect, but you don't know that until, I mean, you know that eventually they're going to come together somehow, but they feel like 3 separate stories. And it's really good is that they're good enough that you forget about the other 2 while you're listening to the one that they're currently on, which is like, oh, that's crap. That's right. That's, we're back on this planet. I forgot about them,
There's no one that's like kind of the drag on the others.
Yeah.
They're all pretty interesting. Cool.
And for me, I like the stuff that's set in modern day because they're more fun, like allusions to things that we know happens in Star Trek, but they're saying something, like it's like this, her podcast partner, Melinda is the main character. Dennis believes in UFOs and stuff like that. She's like, okay, enough of this. I don't want to hear anything more about Amelia Earhart being abducted by aliens or time travelers coming to Chicago to meet, what is it? Mark Twain in San Francisco. Like, just stick to reality, which is really funny because it's like, obviously those 2 things happened in the Star Trek universe.
Right.
This is a big year for Trek. 2024. Yes. There's a lot that happens this year.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah. And there's all the little threads from, if you watch Star Trek 4, they'll mention like the random nun that you see in the background, and they'll talk with her. So they go back and get all of these people, and it's just like, oh, that's right, there were those people. It's like, and it really picks up all the people who saw things and how they rationalize what they saw or didn't.
This has to be a case where the novel kind of has something like over any sort of live action, in the sense that they can literally bring in any little random extra or small part, and you don't have to pay the person, you don't have to animate the person, you just have to remember that person existed.
Yeah. They have the woman who got the pill and grew a new kidney, Miracle Millie.
Yes. Yeah,
so they had like how this happened and all this stuff, and so that's actually sort of the part of the main thread of how this all goes. So just this, it's funny, one random thing that Dr. McCoy does can set off a whole chain of events. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, so it's a lot of fun.
And say the name of it one more time, Aaron.
Lost to Eternity.
Lost to Eternity. All right.
By Greg Cox, right?
Correct.
Long time Trek novelist.
For sure.
Yes. September 1st, and I don't know if it's been advertised or what, they're having, I think in a couple different cities, they're doing Star Trek movies in like Alamo Drafthouse kind of thing. And we have one for Star Trek 4, and Catherine Hicks is going to be there. So that's kind of cool. I get to see Jillian.
That's
Nice.
very awesome.
I found her.
Yes, especially
Right.
now that her namesake is part of the Voyager
Yes.
crew on Prodigy season 2. So
Yep.
And I guess that means that there's an evil version of it in the Mirror Universe, right?
yeah, I actually purchased from Jillian the Well actor Bonnie Taylor. I got one of her "Even the Wells Are Evil" T-shirts. Or wait, it's the wrong side. It's like, why am I holding it up to myself?
Oh,
Nice.
That's so good. That's so good.
Yeah, it just says "Even the Wells Are Evil," and it has the Terran Empire logo with the dagger through it. So the
Love it.
correct one from the original series, not the Discovery one with like the continents flipped.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
that's. I think I call that a different mirror universe. It's like similar but not the same. That's my
But,
headcanon.
Yeah, I think a lot of people run with that. But well, we get multiple parallel universes visited in season 2 of Discovery and Cracked Mirror, so that might lend some credence to that theory. But yeah, y'all want to get into Prodigy season 2?
Yes.
Let's do it.
And we can each kind of give an opening statement, just our large feelings on the complete season as a whole. But if anyone wants to do the honors and go first, or I will.
I'll go first. I made a few notes. To some degree, like, we talked about this when we did the season or the last 5-episode discussion, and so I'll try not to cover too much of what I said, but I did mention at the time that I feel like Prodigy has proven to be maybe the most consistent Trek as far as quality goes. They have a very high level of quality just in general. There's no real duds as far as I'm concerned. And so I actually had a fair amount of faith in this season, and it proved to be justified. So that was very cool, and I was always excited to dive in. But the thing I wanted to mention that I didn't say previously, maybe my favorite kind of overall quality of this season wasn't like a character necessarily, so I guess sort of, or a plot point, but the way it went ahead and immersed itself in the Voyager vibes. So that and Father, I feel like this. Well, I'll come back to your thematic you mentioned, but so we've always had Janeway in it, but now we had the Doctor and Chakotay, and Wesley too. I know he's not Voyager, but he's more in the classic Trek era vein, the TNG era. And Voyager, the link to what you mentioned, Father, is you were talking about them trying to maintain their hope in the middle of this darkest times, and that was, I feel like, a thematic that perseverance was a Voyager thematic during their long voyage home from the Delta Quadrant. But more specifically in this case, I think that the Prodigy kids, they got plenty of spotlight, but having, I think, some adults to bounce off of, to interact with, they were part of that larger Trek universe, kind of it elevated their ties to the bigger Trek universe. The adults gave them people to immediately aspire to, but also to disagree with, as they themselves move toward adulthood. Yeah, I just felt like it kind of gave them some Star Trek gravitas to be able to be amongst, I guess I'd say, the big kids of Voyager. On a less, sort of a more general level, I thought the season had a lot of heart. I liked the redemptive elements, like seeing younger Iltheron and oh my gosh,
Essentia?
What is it?
Essentia?
Essentia, yeah, I couldn't say it.
It doesn't want to spell properly when you type it out either, so that doesn't help.
Yeah.
I have a sister named that, so it's easy for me to remember.
Oh wow!
Really?
Okay.
No, not really.
Oh, wait, what?
I was like, maybe I don't know.
I've never heard this
Following
name.
your damn dry humor. But like it had some really amazing action sequences. They almost got there with a strong Kazon character, not quite maybe. Um, and I do feel like I have a few criticisms of it that we might talk a little bit more as we go along. Nothing huge, but I thought Dowell's arc was almost a little retrograde for him, and he ends up having a very interesting thing near the end. But and that Wesley Crusher was a little too Will Wheaton, perhaps. Not a bad character, just it just didn't quite feel organic. Um, and the this is a weird one, but like as well as they realized cetacean ops, and I think they did an amazing job with it. I still feel it doesn't quite feel like Star Trek to me. It feels like it belongs in another sci-fi property or almost in a slightly more realistic sci-fi kind of in a way than Trek.
It feels like it's redundant. Like there's like, yeah, what how is this any better than like, a quantum computer or something like that?
Something like that too, yeah. But it's balanced out by those scenes were really good scenes, and
Yeah.
I loved all of that stuff. Anyway, overall big win, but yeah, just those are some of my most very very many ups, just one or two little downs.
Very cool. Aaron, what about you? What was your general thoughts on the season as a whole?
My general thoughts of the season is like it really held together as a story, which was great. There was like very few times where it felt like it was, going off track, which I know sometimes I think in season 1 there were some episodes where it's just like felt like you kind of wanted to push them back towards the main plot line. But this all felt like even their side tracks kind of made sense and pulled back into the main story, which is great. And like you said, so much heart, and just the fact that everybody had something to do. That's one of the things I liked about TAS is that all the characters had something to do, and they weren't just like, I'm just the lady who answers the phone. She actually, Nichelle Nichols got to do something, but everybody here had something to do, and it wasn't, repetitive or it wasn't redundant or didn't have any like superfluous use. So I thought that was great.
I imagine that's always a really hard balance for writers to strike, is to
Yeah, that's what I was
make
thinking.
sure that everybody has something cool and interesting to do as things go by without it feeling contrived, so yeah, definite ups to that.
And it's funny. Maybe it's just because my expectations were so low, but the fact when Wesley showed up, I'm like, oh no. But I actually didn't mind him. It's like, okay, It took me a second to kind of get into the vibe, but like he was acting at least. He wasn't just Will Wheaton, at least to me.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like I feel. But when he was in Picard, it was like, yeah, that was great. It would have been nice if Wesley Crusher had shown up because it was only Will Wheaton who was there. But yeah, so I surprisingly to me, even to me, that was one of my favorite characters. And just
Yeah.
and it was nice to see him finally say hello to his mother, which is something they fixed
Absolutely.
from like
I love
Picard
that.
from season 3. And I just love Janeway's sort of like admonishment of like, you should tell her, like don't make me go tell your mom.
Yeah. Good advice, Janeway.
Sometimes you have to be ordered by the admiral to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But
It would be nice if we didn't see them all in one big clump because it doesn't. I don't think it was made to be watched like that, and it just feels
sure.
like a little overload, and like I just wanted to be able to enjoy it instead of like wolfing down my burger and running out the door kind
Right,
of
just
thing.
talking about that Netflix loadout.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And we had to watch
not
it
really
because
on the
we didn't
show,
want it
that's on
spoiled.
Netflix.
Well, yeah, no, totally. No, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying it wasn't written for that even. Like I suppose
Yeah.
if they knew that it was going to be dumped all at one time, they might have different beats or something like that.
I'm not a fan of the big season drops. I've been saying that for
Yeah.
years, and I think other people are finally starting to agree with me. I wanted to watch like that new Batman cartoon, and I pulled it up last night, and I was like, wow, there's already 10 episodes out. That's like 5 hours. I can't commit to all of this. Like I like, it's intimidating. It makes me want to like run out the door and not watch it.
Yeah, I suppose nobody wants to feel like they got kind of left behind by it, and like when you have a classic water cooler kind of show, which for Trekkies, all Trek is water cooler shows. it's nice to have that time to dive into each and every
Yeah.
episode and talk it. And I'm sure we could have done that, really on every single one of them.
I feel like now if I go back and watch it, I'm going to catch stuff that I completely missed the first time around, just because
doubt.
that's what happens.
Yeah, there's a lot of artistry going on in there. There's a combination of writing and all this cool animation.
And visually, it was just that it feels like it was just that much better than season 1. Like you looked at it and it just visually it was lush and it all was like, I'm trying to say, like, it's not that anything would be superfluous in animation, but it feels like it really tells the story and it does a super great job, but at the same time elevates the design of Star Trek at the same time. Like we actually get to see the ships, which is kind of cool compared to like some other Star Trek shows where it's so dark you can't tell what they are.
Yeah, and that was a beautiful first introduction to the new Voyager.
Yeah,
I think about like
even San Francisco, like it's just like gorgeous.
Yeah. The world that Chakotay marooned himself on. In the
the island was beautiful.
Yeah.
The Is There in Beauty No Truth planet was beautiful.
Yeah, even when things were bad, they were beautiful.
We still got like the planetary landing sequence, like in season 1, they do like those beautiful landing sequences and show the landscapes off.
It's sort of like these are all set up for the Star Trek calendar,
See, in the audience, Rachel says she watched the whole season twice because the first day was a blur.
Yeah. Well, I've seen it more than once, but I just saying, like, if you go back like in a couple weeks or a month or something like that and let it sit for a while and then come back to it, I'm sure there's maybe a different subplot I would pick up or a different thread or something.
Well, for me, I got to say that the most, I guess my favorite thing is that I can say all my wish list that I gave it like the beginning of the season, like I guess I got everything I asked for, I think, right? Because I wanted no loose ends, and I feel like they wrapped up everything. It's still open for continuation, but they gave me no loose threads. They gave me more Okana. I feel Okana is quasi redeemed. He said
but in a different universe.
Help. Well, I think that was before the divergence of that timeline. So
okay,
maybe the events were the same up to then. The one thing I was asking for is I wanted to see new things in Federation space. Like I wanted to see them take like this familiar old Alpha Quadrant. Now that like the kids are like back there, they're working with Starfleet. They could possibly visit familiar species or planets. And I think that we got some additions to that foundational Star Trek setting, by bringing in the Wesley Crusher and Travelers that had already been hinted at in Picard. I think that's like a really cool addition to the Trek lore for future stories. To even like the Vonnecots are all like they went through like those wormholes in season 1. There was 100 of them. Like we only know of 2 of them, right? So like any Star Trek story at any time, if they ever need like a Vonnecot to like show up through a wormhole and cause trouble, I'm sure like some novel in the future or something will benefit from that.
When Klingons who are in stasis wake up and didn't know that they're not at war with the Federation anymore or something like that. And I think it was Voyager.
And then the stuff that we see with the other legacy characters, like with Jellicoe being in at the head of, well, I'm not sure exactly what his role is at Starfleet, but whatever he's doing.
Old man.
A lot of people were like asking for years, whatever happened to Jellicoe. So, but just seeing Chakotay continuing to have a Starfleet career, the Doctor continuing to have a Starfleet career, Janeway trying to retire, I guess.
Her house, by the way, is exactly how I imagined when they described it in the biography that they did a while ago. Oh. It's like almost. I'm like looked at it, I'm like, holy crap! It's like came out of my head. It was so weird.
That's very cool. I'd like to see that juxtaposed. Like I'd be curious to read that text and check it out.
Up in Indiana, right?
When did they show that in the final episode?
Yeah, because she actually does retire until First Contact Day, and then they bring her out of retirement. But
very short-lived retirement.
I think I said about the Prodigy season 1 that out of any season of Star Trek that attempted to tell a season-long story arc, which I guess Star Trek Enterprise season 3 was the first one to try that, and then 5 seasons of Discovery and 3 seasons of Picard. I think Prodigy had like the most consistent, even best story out of all of those
Yeah.
until Prodigy season 2, because I like the more ambitious timey-wimey stuff and the big Starfleet stuff and bringing in Jellicoe and the Doctor. And so yeah, season 2 of Prodigy, one of the best seasons of Trek I've ever seen. I would argue with people always want to like rank like the shows, or like, what's your favorite of the modern shows or whatever, and I always like struggle with that question because I love Strange New Worlds so much and I love Prodigy so much, and they both accomplish being so great in two very different ways. Strange New Worlds very much leans into like that Trek tradition of Planet of the Week. Like that was kind of the point of Strange New Worlds. Like you want an episodic live action show, here you go. So and Prodigy has like such like different intentions. I feel like I should be able to say they're both. They can simultaneously be like my favorite modern Star Trek shows, right? They are so different, but yeah, like they're both so good.
And I don't even know if Picard was trying to tell a season or a series long, or well, I guess it was season long. Each season had a story.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah, in fact, it didn't seem like the seasons were necessarily talking, since every single one of them had the Borg are back.
Yeah.
And I like lots within those seasons at times, but they definitely did not feel.
And the use of the Borg in Prodigy was actually really good, given that it's a TV show for kids, it's ostensibly for kids.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I don't want live action Trek to give up on the big arcs. Like I like a lot of Picard season 3. It's not perfect, but I think there's like a lot of like good potential and like telling like those big 10 episode epic stories. I think there should be a live action Star Trek show that does that. But and Prodigy here, it kind of shows like, oh yeah, you can tell like a really great serialized story in Trek. Here's a 10-hour Wesley Crusher and the Travelers and the Loom story that I thought was really damn good. So
Loom are cool.
Yeah, and that's like another cool addition for future Trek shows to pull from. So I definitely don't want Prodigy to be forgotten. I think we need to keep making noise about it. We need to try to get it that 3rd season and just keep it relevant, because I want like whoever is like writing Star Trek in the future, I want them to be like how these writers, they look at like, oh, TNG and Voyager, and like look at all the stuff that these past storytellers created that we can use. These can be assets for us. I want someone to have Prodigy in their toolbox in the future.
It's like the mirror universe of Picard season 1, where it's like, let's not make any reference to anything in the past, hardly at all.
Right. I love those references. I want somebody to like mention, like that they read a paper that was published by Rock Talk or something like that. Small things like that would be awesome.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I want to hear Dr. Ogawa in season 3. Speaking of like Patty, what was her last name? I'm sorry. Recently passed away, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm blinking on it also, but rest in peace. That was sad to see.
Yes.
Did y'all have any like particular episodes in season 2 that stood out as a particular favorite?
What was it? So I think for just sheer fun, I really like Cracked Mirror.
Yeah, I have to be basic and say Cracked Mirror.
I know, I know it's kind of the obvious one, but like it gave us, first ever that we had seen Mirror Voyager crew members.
Yep.
Which was a lot of fun. It had like some great references in there. Father, it gave you your evil whale shirt. And
Captain Neelix.
Yes, that was like was it Captain Neelix or
Captain Tuvix?
Tuvix, sorry, Tuvix. Sorry,
Captain Tuvix with the Talaxian Vulcan fusion cuisine.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a great joke too. Just like one line. Like that's all. It's funnier that we don't see him.
Yes, I agree.
We just imagine him sitting in the captain's chair. Yeah, no, I think that was absolutely the right call. The just let the mind fill in the blanks on that. Let's see. I see mentioned in the comments one that I would mention as well. The is there in beauty no truth?
Yeah.
And they also, that's Mrs. Powell family. And they mentioned the Wesley 2-parter as their personal
The Devourer of All Things parts 1 and 2, which that That's honestly, if I can count that two-parter as one episode, that would be my favorite over Cracked Mirror. I thought that was like the reintroduction of Wesley Crusher was so cool.
Yeah,
One of those cases where we talked about this before.
it's hard to
but
pick your favorite, actually.
It was lucky, really, not just luck, but I think impressive that the Trek community did not blab everything, and that like we didn't know all of those things.
Still baffles me. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, like, I mean, and it's not just that, but it's like that Cetacean Ops was a big thing, that Beverly Crusher would revisit and be reunited with Wes, one of my favorites. Jellicoe, well, I guess we knew he was kind of in the mix, but there were a lot of references that could have been spoiled, and I don't think I really had any of them spoiled, so...
Yeah, the Wesley was the big one for me. I am so glad that didn't get revealed.
I think if it had been revealed, because of my unappreciation for Wesley Crusher or the actor playing him, I would probably have been prejudiced toward not liking the show to start with, or something. Not disliking it, but just like being like, ugh, now I got to deal with Wesley. But he was,
but they sneaked him in there. They
but
he's the fast one on you.
He's the Star Trek Doctor Who now. I mean, he's got that vibe to him.
I mean, that's a pretty cool place to end up, and like one of those cases, I think I've mentioned, I sometimes like when people don't follow the standard Star Trek command track. I like I like Tilly ending up going sideways. Wes very sideways. Went off and became
Everyone must be an
guy.
admiral. That's the rule.
Right.
By the time you're done here.
Please no.
I think Aaron Walkie in our live chat is talking about the Tuvix joke, but he says that was my favorite joke I wrote for the whole series so far. I believe that's the one he's talking about.
I think I saw that, and I had the same thought, Father. I guess Aaron can tell us if we're mistaken, but that was yes. Pat yourself on the back. You deserve that one. Deserve it.
But yeah, that big two-parter that gave us Wesley, the Devourer of All Things, that also gave us Tank Top Janeway going full-on Ripley again, kicking ass with the loom. So I was so thrilled to see that. I have like protective mama bear come rescue the kids like that. Mm-hmm. Like that was just so badass. I love that. Every time I watch that sequence, I'm like, oh my god, I love this even more than I remember. Like hyping it up right now. I promise if I tossed it on right now and watched it, I'd be like, wow, I was just saying how much I love this, and I still love it even more than I remember.
I see in the comments Rachel mentions talking to a French fan recently, and they mentioned that they had a Discord just to talk about Prodigy season 2 without spoiling it for we Yanks. So that is indeed very sweet.
That's really cool.
Thank you, France. Thank you,
Merci.
French Star Trek fans.
Merci, right?
Merci.
Well, close enough.
I threw an accent on it. I also
Merci.
There we go. Brad Pitt in Unglorious Bastard style.
Oh yeah. That's how I sound when I try to speak Spanish. So I try to avoid. I should just stick to English. I don't even speak that very well, but.
When I was jotting down a few notes on favorite episodes, this is even more basic than saying Cracked Mirrors. I liked the kickoff two-parter because, I just thought it did so much in such a short span of time. The kids got all reintroduced. We found out what they were doing and how they had grown in their time at the academy. We would later see them, matched up with work programs on Voyager. We got the Doctor back in there. There was the mystery of what's in Hangar Bay 3 and how is it going to lead to Chakotay. We got to see. I think the kids talked about the debt that they owed Chakotay for his role in bringing them together. We got to see Nova Squad introduced. There was some kind of fun friction that would go on to inform the whole thing, like Rock Talk becoming this person who had really found her place and did not want to upset that balance by doing Dal's usual harebrained scheme shit.
Yeah. Who saw that arc coming? Like Rock Talk going from the most childish to the most mature in a very natural, organic way.
Very cool idea. And then I think we got to see the younger versions of Iltheron, maybe, and maybe I don't know if we saw Essentia yet at that point, but that introduced a theme that I would kind of like, which is that there's nobody is pure evil in this. The whether we're talking about the Loom, who kind of would end up being used cruelly, Essentia herself, who like Iltheron, did not used to be this bitter, jaded, disillusioned person who had really just gone horribly fascist. And so, that's just the first 2 episodes. They really laid so much groundwork, and got the series off to this really energetic start. There was a new ship in there, or a new version of the Voyager and all of that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we got the Infinity and Voyager A around the same time.
Yep.
And Infinity was a cool little proxy protostar, Like, I love the protostar. I missed it, but I didn't mind having that cool time travel ship for a little bit.
A little bit of a Defiant in some ways, too.
Yeah, it was like a secret experimental ship.
What happened to that ship?
The Loom ate it. Which also showed how bad the Loom are, because like if you kill like a big ship, like a hero ship in Star Trek, like that's almost as bad as killing a character, right? Like the death of the Enterprise in Star Trek 3.
Yeah. And the question is, like, did it ever exist at this point then? Because they ate it. It's like, does that mean the way people don't exist? Like, does that happen to the ship too?
Yeah, anyone who didn't have like their little armband on, like, do they now have no memory? Like, does Tysus have no memory of ever working on that ship?
Shuttle Bay 3? What are you talking about?
Yeah, did the designers of it? They're like, I can't. It's hazy what I was working on for like the last year.
yeah, that's a good question.
Nice.
Or maybe their mind fills in something else.
Yeah,
interesting.
But speaking of the introduction of Majel in those episodes, like, what did y'all think about her addition to the team this year? Or the
all
season,
Star Trek shows now need to have a semi-sassy Vulcan female added on the second season, or a later season.
The original series did that with the second movie with Saavik, so they got the ball started, or got the ball rolling on that.
It's weird because she is so obviously logical and unemotional, but she's a really good proxy for us. It's like we're trying to figure out what these characters are, and she's doing the same thing. So it's like her confusion or her understanding of what those characters are is kind of us as well. We're filtered through that, which I always thought was kind of like Spock or anybody. It's just who's a Vulcan. It's like, trying to figure out what these weird emotions are, which also is a character, motivation or whatever.
Yeah, I appreciate that in a quick span of time, she went from being sort of a pretty traditional Vulcan character, just younger version of it, to almost immediately setting herself apart by being able to, first of all, associating with the team, kind of becoming a surrogate member of the Prodigy kid crew early on, but also being willing to, put some emotional energy out towards Zero, which I think everybody was pretty much into that. I don't know anybody who didn't like that.
It shows it's not like a solid, monoculture of Vulcans. Not everybody's exactly the same.
And I like that romance with Zero, which I was totally not expecting. I had no idea they were going to add this cool Vulcan character, and I had no idea that they were going to do something between her and Zero. But in a way, I think that relationship is so much more interesting and so much more of a cooler thing for the show to play around with than the Dao-Gwen relationship. Because I feel like that one is just kind of harder to explore. In you don't have to deal with like any like all ages awkwardness either. When you have like, I'm just like a glowing ball of energy, so like we don't have to worry about like does it look too weird if we like kiss on screen or anything like that. It's just like it's not going to be like too risky. It's just like a ball of light inside of a robot suit. But it's also more you can do cool like kind of sci-fi stuff with that, and with the whole like telepathic connection. But those characters are they're more interesting. They're more unique. Like Gwen and Dal just kind of seem like typical teenagers that they like each other, but they're kind of like nervous and shy about it. But they seem like such a familiar pattern to that relationship, and whereas the Zero Majel thing, like having to like overcome his what I read as a disability with his lack of sensory abilities and stuff like that, or I'm sorry there,
yeah,
and I was thinking we would see a lot of like Dao and Gwen spotlight in season 2, and I was pleasantly surprised. Like, oh, it's actually this more interesting relationship, Zero and Majel, that I wasn't expecting. That
I did like Dallin Gwen's
shines.
little moments here and there,
I
like
did
at
too.
the on the planet where Zero got their physical form, their organic form, and all that. But yeah, I agree with you, Father. This broke from traditional tropes, gave us just something we hadn't seen before, and that was cool to see. These characters. Both of them were kind of on the shy side, but not too shy to express their connection. Um, I saw that mentioned in the comments from LJG DT that Majel broke the T streak for, I guess, the Vulcans along with Savik. They're the Vulcan rebels with their names.
Yeah, no T'Pol, T'Pring, T'Pal, none of that.
She's related to Pow, though, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt I was happy for Zero in a lot of this season. I got I love Zero's little yips of happiness.
Let's talk about Murph. We haven't said much about Murph, but one of the things that I was asking for going into the season that I was happy I got is I wanted to understand Murph. I felt like I don't really like know what the deal is. Is he like a pet? Is he a baby? Is he a child? Like
All
what
three.
level of sentience is he? Like, but I felt like when they had the translator on him for a little bit and he was able to go like super ADHD and just like be like this, hyper
Disco
kid
stuff.
running around. But like I felt like I get him now, and he's like, oh yeah, he's just a youthful, enthusiastic gamer kid who like wanted to play
Apparently
video games on
swears
the
a lot.
holodeck. Yeah, apparently swear. That's a gamer thing, right? But like his security training on the holodeck, and it does seem like a little bizarre that he is able to be like a commissioned officer in Starfleet. Like he would like be able to like give people orders and like command ships and stuff. But Chief O'Brien would have to call him sir. All I'm saying. So he didn't. He was dreading having to do that to Nog. How would he feel having to call the melanoid slime worm sir?
Yeah.
But
In the comments, Miss Powell mentioned the Murph and Jillian scene, and I really liked that too. That was a cool one. Was the I forget, how did that come about? What were they trying to do in that scene? They just needed to communicate with Murph because Murph knew about the mysterious person who we would later learn was Chakotay, right? Who was trying to assist them? Was it?
it was Wesley Crusher was the one.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
All future guy from Enterprise.
Right.
I think
was it to communicate with Murph, and they decided that an aquatic environment would be the way to do that.
Yeah, they thought that the Jillian would be able to translate. I don't think it had to do with like the water, but then he just like spells out "find me." Because the translator didn't work. But when they did have the translator on him before that, I felt like just like that, like I said in the show when we talked about it, just like that little glimpse into his mind.
Yeah.
It helped
also
explain him.
Star Trek Discovery stuff like disco mushrooms or whatever, like all these like okay.
And I liked his current form, what some people have called like leggy Murph with like the arms and legs. Like that's finally grown on me now that like they do more action Murph stuff with that. Or like when he goes like Mr. Fantastic and like can like stretch out his arms, or he'll grow like extra arms to punch people. And now that he can, stop being like the little baby, like the pet. He's kind of like the pet in season 1. And then after he gets legs, he can be the security officer. He can do all the fun, fighty, actiony stuff.
Yeah, I like that.
Was it never trust the cute one or whatever?
Yeah. Although now Bribble is the cute one, so I don't know if that's ominous of what is Bribble going to evolve into. I never thought about that, but maybe if there's a season 3, that would be a good excuse to go to the Brakar homeworld, because maybe like Bribble gets sick and they need like some like Brakar cure or something, and they go there and we see like Rok-Tahk's people.
Yeah, there's who knows what kind of weird defenses and stuff this Tribble has too. Maybe it'll have little spiky quills like in the movie Critters.
I'm glad that Bribble did not overstay its welcome. We just
Yeah.
it's just a little bit like, hanging out on Rock Talk's shoulder every now and then. I guess we get like the occasional like, oh no, Bribble had a oopsie in my pocket like kind of line, which
Right.
I don't know if those are necessary, but like I don't mind them. I'm glad that
I
they
like
they
the
didn't go
laser
too.
pointer.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, there's some fun stuff too, like Hollow Janeway playing with like
It's like a
cat
cat.
sitting Bribble. Yeah.
Yeah, even the occasional slightly crude joke were mostly kind of on the more tame side of things.
When it happened, I
at
was
no
like,
point
oh
was
no,
I
poor
like,
Dave.
oh no, gross.
I like the
Yeah.
Sonic toilet. I like Sonic toilet as canon.
Finally, the big questions.
Yeah. But even that was like, it didn't feel gratuitous. It was like part of the story. It was like they were all like cramped on the Infinity, and they were tired of being stuck on like that small little ship together, and it was like establishing what was going on. When Murph was doing push-ups on top of Rock Talk's pad, which was kind of weird. But I guess melanoid slime worms have to work out to stay in shape for security duty.
Yeah, and maybe he was just doing it to impress people. I don't.
He just wants to show off, drop and give me 50.
Right.
Well, speaking of showing off, I'm about to show off Star Trek Prodigy writer producer Aaron J.
Hey.
Welke. He's kind enough to join us.
Hi.
How's
I
it
was
going?
grocery shopping and listening to your show. Father, he was like, "Why don't you just come on for a second?" Hi, everybody.
Cool.
I don't mean to disrupt the conversation. It's actually a very, very good conversation. But I just wanted to say hi. Thanks for all the coverage of our show. It's been, wonderful sort of hearing your perspective, just because I've been sitting with it for years now.
Oh, years, yeah, years at this
Yeah.
point.
And I just want to say on a personal note, Dave, I understand you're taking a step back from the show, but I just want to say that I actually have been listening to your show from the very beginning, because I think you were one of the first ones that covered Prodigy, and I always appreciated your insight and like thoughtful
Oh, wow.
comments and criticism quite a bit, and it made us feel okay about going to those places in Prodigy. So I just want to say, like, your
Thank you
efforts
so
for the
much.
show have not gone unnoticed, and thank you for all of your insightful.
That's incredibly
commentary.
cool. I feel like we're just, fans who got lucky enough to have some people listen to us, look at something cool. So
Yeah,
but yeah, we certainly try to put our thoughts into it, and love that connection.
well, I mean, I think it meant a lot to us on the crew just to hear from the fans. Not only that, but just fellow Star Trek aficionados that said, "Hey, maybe we're on the right track here," and trying to push the franchise forward. So anyway, and that applies to all of you. But I just wanted to say to Dave in particular, because I know your run, at least as a full-time member, is coming to
Yeah,
a close.
I'm transferring to another ship.
Sure. Right, but you may beam on occasionally, just to...
That is absolutely true.
Special guest star.
I will be a special guest star.
Okay.
So yeah, but yeah, no, and obviously we're thanking you too for giving us this great season and a 40 episode arc that came together, which is like a crazy feat.
Yeah, it was a little insane for us to try.
I bet.
but I think
There was nothing going on at that time. There was no strike or anything like that.
right, exactly. But
Everything's smooth
ultimately,
sailing.
I think when it
Global
comes to
pandemic.
yeah, I think when it comes to our show in particular, I said this a couple times at Vegas, but whenever somebody had said that'd be really hard to do, we had a backfire effect, and we're like, all right, then we'll do it right. We're gonna throw down the gauntlet. We'll show you how it's
ADHD response.
done.
I
Right.
love that.
I think go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that we talked about in the finale when the kids get to be that little sort of beacon of hope amidst the synth uprising in these kind of dark times, the Romulan evacuation and all of that.
Yeah.
That's like a really truly Trek message, and I suppose persevering with Trek through the pandemic, through with the strike happening or in and around, is our own little reflection, y'all's reflection of that in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, the first season was made with the pandemic crumbling down around us. The second season was made as it seemed like everything else was crumbling around us. And if anything, in this little bubble of sort of hope and perseverance and a glimpse of perhaps a better future, it kind of kept us going, and it seems like it is, helping other people kind of see the light in the darkness. So I think that's been the biggest gratifying thing that we've taken from the reaction to this season. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. Did you have any more questions while I'm here? I'm happy to answer real quick.
Let's see.
Well, I think I'm speaking for a lot of Trekkies when I say, like, we want to thank you for all of the effort that went into Prodigy. It shows there is a lot of passion and even some good helping of Star Trek fandom behind the scenes going on. It definitely comes through in the final product.
Yeah, I that certainly was the case. This, especially this last season, all of my head canon got to basically become canon, so that was cool. With Wesley and Station Ops, I will say, I know Dave was sort of middle of the road on Station Ops, but for me, growing up, I was always like, what did Geordi just say about dolphins? What was that? What was in that page 87 of the technical manual? Can we see more of that, please?
I love the whale cars too. That's what I call it, the whale cars. The whale cars thing that's great. It was
so
it would have to have some sort of different interface. So yeah, it makes sense.
But that's the fun thing about Star Trek is it's a really big sandbox, and anybody can pick things up or set them down at any time, and one little offline of dialogue could spawn 5 novels. And that it's like a restaurant. If you want some comedy, you can watch Trouble with Tribbles or Trial with Tribulations. If you want some submarine warfare, you can watch Balance of Terror. It contains multitudes, and Ron Moore feels the same way. Like, he's like that. It's very few shows can have such genre swings of the pendulum at each week and still have it be coherent, let alone enjoyable. And I love that about Star Trek. And it seems like all of you do too. Anyway, I'll let you guys get back to the conversation. I just wanted to pop in and say hi because I got a link. So
good to see you.
Well, thanks for coming by, Aaron. Have a good one.
Okay,
That was great.
Bye.
Yeah, I mean, that is a great point. The diversity of the franchise. You can get infinite diversity and infinite combinations of genres. Like going back to the original series, it might be a gunfight of the OK Corral, or it might be a triple comedy. You never know.
Yeah, for a minute, Father, I was thinking it was it was as if the original series predicted the variety of shows we would have later. But and yes, there is something to that. But they also had a wide variety within their show right from the get-go.
Yeah. I don't even know if they would have predicted that would be a show in the future. Back then, it's like, I don't think people assumed that shows would run this long.
Yeah, no.
TV wasn't even around this long at that point.
Incredibly rare.
David Gerald famously tells the story of how when he sold that script, he thought it would just air on NBC one time, and then it would air again in the summer for the rerun, and no one would ever see it again, and it was just his 15 minutes of fame. And then decades later, he's still running around like, "Hey, I'm the Tribble guy."
Yeah, that's wild. Probably a gift and a slight curse occasionally.
It's like when we interviewed people for our book. It's just like, I can't remember because who would have thought to have remembered whatever this thing, that we asked them. It's like, it was 40 years ago, 50 years ago, whenever it was. And it was our job. And it's just sort of like, do you remember what you did 20 years ago and on a Tuesday?
Yeah.
So, because, I mean, but the cool thing is everybody who seems to have worked with Star Trek, there is something more than just the average job. Like, they remember something special about it as opposed to just like, it was a thing.
Right. And especially as time goes by, it becomes like a bigger and bigger phenomenon. So.
Yeah.
Well, I guess like the winding up on season 2, I guess I do want to ask, was there any like a particular moment or like scene that like really like got you in the heart, got you in the feelings where you're just like, really moved. Like I had
Yes.
the big one for me was some of the Zero stuff and just the
like the sacrifice that Zero.
I think it was more just like the realization of seeing how like disabilities. Again, I was reading a lot of their arc as a kind of a disability type thing, and just seeing that as being like the accommodation is just as good as like the cure. It's like, oh well, you know, it's okay that you're like this. There's nothing wrong with you. We'll just accommodate you. And
you know what I loved? One of the things I loved related to that was when Jankum was like busting his ass to get that body prepared, you know, as fast as he could, given that they had these time constraints, and you know the friendship and the kind of the love that indicates, you know, for a gruff, crude guy like he is, you know, that he's like will really do everything he can for Zero.
Yeah, that was the moment that like that where I kind of tear up. Aaron, what were you saying? What was a big one for you?
For me, it's when they come across Adric, and just like,
oh yeah,
Chakotay's like, oh, you feathered fool, and just like it's like he knew that he was right the whole time. There was just a lot, and the fact that
Very
they let
solemn.
a kids show have that, like, yeah, it wasn't like a gory body, but there still was a dead body there. You know, it's just, it's a little, you know, for me, it was just sort of like I can totally feel what that would feel like.
It's serious. Yeah, like even for a kid's show, like it feels serious.
Right, and it was an indication that, you know, for all that, you know, Chakotay would become this kind of leader for them, that he was also a fallible adult who had kind of fallen into despair and, you know, was going to have to be capable of admitting that he had lost his way and that Adric was, you know, the hope that he had was you know, not a mistake and was well placed, and that now Chakotay had to kind of find that in him, and then he would go on to become that sort of mentor and an advisor that the kids needed. But that's a pretty deep lesson to be teaching. You know, the adults are fallible thing.
And related to that, when he was looking at the picture of his crew, you know, it's kind of like connected.
Oh yeah, you know, it's a small thing, but I loved all the, you know, like the little pieces Chakotay was carving. Of his crew. You know, for me, I loved seeing Wes reunited with Beverly.
Oh yeah.
And especially the thing that I did not expect, which was she's like, hey, I want you to meet your brother. Really beautiful.
Yeah, baby Jack.
Yep.
As DT's pointing out in the chat.
I liked the sort of solidarity of the Vonnegut when Gwyn was about to lose and they kind of lent their power. That moment, you know, we knew that they were that there were rebel uprisings and things like that, but this was, you know, a very visual manifestation of it, and you know, really sort of heartfelt. And also, I think I would want to mention, like, you know, maybe Dal's sort of biggest moment of growth when he cedes the leadership to Gwyn at the end. That's, you know...
Which is that little snippet that he saw into the future. It was interesting.
Right. And making peace with that, knowing that he had made peace with it. Which also, by the way, you know, Chakotay was the one who said, hey, you know, maybe don't put, you know, all your, you know, your focus on just being the captain to the point where you're not kind of like, I don't know, in the moment, or however he put it, you know, kind of being the best you can in the moment. You know, you're kind of a little bit daydreaming about well, this is where I want to be, instead of, you know, being sort of centered. And that got him where he needed to be to pass the torch to Gwyn.
Yeah, maybe a certain head of state watched that episode of Prodigy and was like, "Oh, I know what I have to do now."
Wow, big effects, big ripples in the timeline there.
I feel like the one thing that's unrealistic about that is that Starfleet would probably be the one who would choose who was going to sit in that seat. I don't think you get to choose that yourself.
There's definitely a little bit of
that's what Chakotay and Janeway are like saying when like man, that guy seriously thought we were gonna like put him in command. We were always planning to give it to Gwendala.
Right. They were
great choice, Dal. You've shown a lot of growth. Good job, buddy. I'm just like laughing at him behind his back.
She was about 10 seconds from saying it herself, and then she's like, "Oh, thank God,
Yeah.
he got there. He got there."
Yeah, she's like, man, I was worried he was gonna cry. This is so much easier than I thought it was gonna be.
Poor Dal. Poor Dal. I know not everybody loves ships the Chakotay Janeway, but I also there were some heartfelt moments, even sometimes just visually, between them and their connection. Whether you want to read that as deep friendship or romance, I thought they did a good job of conveying that, and I liked that. It was a nice rounding back to some Voyager lore and the connection that you feel for a show that's now 30-ish years old, and stuff like that.
It turns 30 in January.
Yeah. But yeah, they did a really good job hitting some of those emotional beats in the season. Very briefly, I was like, "No, Murph, don't plunge to your death."
Yeah, they had me worried about Murph for a split second, but I was like, no, they're not gonna get rid of that bouncy slime boy. He's okay. He's okay.
Well, that was the cool thing. It's like, or not cool thing, but that section where they were like fighting and stuff, it was very suspenseful, except for the fact that you knew that none of them were going to die. So it's just sort of like, I mean, that you didn't know for sure, but it was pretty obvious that, we weren't going to lose Gwen or Dal. So like when they're hanging over the edge, it's like totally like you get that vertigo feeling and stuff like that. But then you realize, okay, this isn't really going to end badly.
Sure. The way things that can play out on a show like this is, they could get injured, they could get sidelined,
Right.
We've got future tech that can, you could fall into an energy field and they're like, oh, he's barely clinging to life. He's going to be in sick bay for a month or a week or whatever. But
you get really old and then they regenerate you.
Yeah, they find consequences that work within the age intentions of it. So I thought they did a good job with that.
Well, I guess the last thing I wanted to ask y'all was, hopefully we get more Prodigy in some form someday, and hopefully sooner rather than later. But what are some things y'all would like to see with these characters? I mean, I really want to see I want to see them go to Deep Space Nine.
Damn, Father, are you in Deep Space Nine?
Hey, you don't have to build the station and animation. It's very easy to visit. So
you and Deep Space Nine should get a room.
No, I'd love that too, because it'd be cool to see some little upgrades here and there. DS9, we would learn more about it. I guess when it was on lower decks, right?
Right.
Yes.
And where is that timeline in relation to Prodigy?
So that would have been like 2 or 3 years before
right.
This time at the end of Prodigy, or at the end of Prodigy season 2. So
Prodigy could, if they want, there could be some little changes here and there, some visual differences in the station. Obviously the baseline stuff will all be there, but yeah, I'd for sure be about that.
And I think Nana and Armin would both lend their voices if asked to come back. So.
What I was thinking is that the what was it? I wouldn't mind seeing if they did it again. Let a year or two have gone by. Give the kids a little bit that allows you to come up with some new visual designs. Some new looks for everybody.
Allows novel writers to put in some books in that time gap.
There you go.
Sure. Yeah.
New uniforms, because we have to have that.
Hey, David, Matt, Greg Cox, I'm looking out for y'all. So.
But I like the idea. These kids, we know that this is supposed to be kind of a dire time for Starfleet and the Federation, and the kids can be a little beacon in those times. I wondered if they would, might build up a little bit of a crew from some of the planets that they visit. I think that'd be kind of cool to have an eclectic crew pulled from people who were, looking to, step away from their planet for whatever reason. Almost like a refugee crew, which would sort of fit the way they started out on Tars Lamora, I think it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that, I don't remember how much they said about what the Protostars exact mission was, if they even did.
Yeah, they're just out doing exploring and the stuff that I guess Starfleet no longer is going to spend resources on. So a lot of the non-essential exploration, scientific type missions, or maybe even some diplomatic stuff.
I was looking for a diplomatic mission. I didn't quite get that in season 2, so I'm still waiting on that. I'll hold out for season 3.
Well, Gwen was sent on a diplomatic mission, but yeah, I guess she wasn't allowed to get very far into it before it was derailed.
I was just thinking, I like the idea of a crew that was kind of pulled together from sort of talented refugees, but also I think Okana needs to join the ship. I think he needs to be on there and
Kermit Okana
to give him his true growth moment.
Yeah. If there's a season 3, you pick up Okana for 5 episodes. Do something with him. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe he doesn't stick around, but yeah, like an extended storyline with him, I kind of like. We can actually find out that he's like, oh yeah, I joined because there's like debt collectors after me. But
very Harry Mudd kind of thing.
I am looking for his continuing redemption. I feel like we could visit Murph's planet, right?
Oh yeah,
see some slime worms.
Yeah. And Jankum's like Larry
Nemechek
would love for us to get to Teller Prime.
Yeah, like a big arc, like like a 5-episode thing there that concerns something going on Teller Prime. I mean, that'd be a chance to like kind of do some real world building. Not that they hadn't, but like something that like really ties into a core of Star Trek that we always mention whenever we're like more Tellarite stuff. They're founding Federation members that have not gotten. What was Enterprise probably their biggest showcase? Would that be the case?
Probably. Yeah, I got Tellarites have appeared on Enterprise probably more than any other show until Prodigy, I think.
Yeah, but even that didn't show Teller Prime, right?
No, yeah. Even there, they only show up like 3 or 4 times. Yeah, it's
a big opportunity. In the comments, Jill is saying David Diggs. I think that is Commander Tysus needs a song. And I'm about that.
Yeah, David Diggs makes like some really weird and interesting hip hop music that I like, but I'm not sure if I can recommend to people because it's so it can be so bizarre that it's.
Oh, that'd be perfect for like some future hip hop. Let's
like Endorian music. Yeah, it should be kind of weird. So.
Yeah. The only other thing that I can think of is 7 of 9. I don't know where she is in this, but that's a Voyager crew member. Actually,
she'd be Fenris ranging, so that would be cool to kind of see that.
You could totally.
Yeah, that'd be a dangerous place that they go to for a while.
Am I the first person to ever use Fenris ranging as a verb? By the way,
I think maybe. I think there's a high possibility that you are, Father. But that said, I would like to see continue any of the Voyager connections. So Harry Kim, Tom Paris, B'Elanna, any of those people would also be awesome to see too. As long as there's a good story reason, like I know that the kids aren't like they're not on the Voyager, but if they found through Janeway connections and stuff like that, any reason to see any of the others, I'd love to see that.
And what's nice about how they've been using it in Prodigy, it feels like it's an integral part of the story as opposed to, hey, you remember this thing? Look, it's there. Okay. Yeah. And then move on to the next. It's like it has a point as opposed to just being a what is it, member berries or whatever they call them.
Yeah, all of that's there for a reason. The Sonic toilet joke is there for a reason. And it doesn't feel gratuitous with the cameras or with that.
In the audience, I see calls for Naomi Wildman, and Jill suggests a Rock Jankum buddy road trip, which I can get behind that. Strand those people in a shuttle.
Aaron, anything that you can think of you'd like to see in a season 3 or some other continuation?
Yeah, I mean, kind of related to what Dave was saying. It's like it would be nice if maybe this one didn't necessarily have a giant like overarching disaster happening. It's like maybe like you 5-episode arcs or something like that, where it's like a story that goes over a couple episodes, and do more kind of like you said, travel basically. It would be cool to see. Well, we mentioned Harry Kim in the last for season 2. I wanted to say, so now we'll move that to season 3. But just something like, and I don't know if they will go back to it, but I would love to see young Essentia and like maybe even her coming on the ship, because it's sort of like, yeah, I'm not really too comfortable at home now because people have a little fear of me at this point or something, or even
Sure.
the dad showing up.
She might
That'd be
be in
cool.
exile or something.
Yeah.
Because
No,
we
just a
could keep
younger
that
version.
actor though. We could keep
Yeah.
that actor on the show and like have her join the kids, and then everyone
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, I can't trust," and then be like, "Well, Gwen, some of us didn't trust you when you first joined," and that'd be some
Yeah.
fun dramatic sparks. That'd be
That's
fun.
what I was thinking. It would be interesting to see, like, she gets, she has to earn her place basically, and
Same age as them, so I think that would make
Yeah.
sense, right?
like it's just the whole. We never really got a conversation with her about like how did she actually feel seeing her future self. Obviously not great, but I mean,
Yeah.
like what it's the the road not taken sort of a path story.
That's an
But yeah.
interesting that could happen to any of us. Like, here comes your future self who's like come back in time from the future and has become like the dictator and took over. It's like, oh wow, like what does this say about me? Like that's a interesting place to put a character.
Yeah, so that's kind of
I
what
feel
I
like
was...
she would be suffering from like a certain like timidness, like where she's like, well, I'm always worried, like, is this the step that could put me on that path? Oh,
Yeah.
was seeing it the problem? Am I damaged now? That'd be an interesting thing. Maybe Dr. Noam could actually do some counseling instead of being an a-hole.
We need some like some good counseling in Star Trek.
Yeah. I mean,
Wait,
I feel
those-
like, Chakotay and Janeway filled that purpose in this, but yes, it'd be nice to see, go ahead and bring that role in. Let's continue to advocate for mental health and mental health professionals.
And it would be fun once in a while to see her father too. Basically, the guy from Fringe.
Yeah, for sure.
Always feels like Walter whenever the current version of him where he was like before he became the dictator. It's like, oh, it's Walter.
Yeah, the enthusiastic scientist.
Yeah.
Not the cartoonish villain.
Yeah.
Well, y'all have any final thoughts on Prodigy season 2 before we call it a night?
I don't think so. I think I hit all the
covered a
big
lot of
notes that I wanted to.
Yeah, I think we all agree we want a season 3. But we're all happy with how the 40 episode story played out.
Netflix says, no, we're not going to give you season 3. We're just skipping straight to season 4.
Well, timey-wimey, so why not?
Exactly.
I mean, the other Star franchise started on number 4, so I
That's
think
true.
we're okay.
Yeah. No, definitely. That I really hope that it does happen because, they've set up this world and it's positive, and I feel like kids nowadays need something like that because there's not a whole bunch of other stuff out there. Even like sci-fi stuff that's in the future that's fun still isn't necessarily positive.
Oh my god, like I would hate to be a kid now who has like the same type of tastes that like I had as a kid, because it's like
Yeah.
they don't really like make stuff for that. I guess I would
There's
eat
so many
up like
dystopian shows. It's like, good lord,
Yeah.
enough.
I would eat up like
Are you trying to make it come true?
the
Yeah,
superhero stuff, but like none of like the good like sci-fi, like the the
Babylon
colorful
5.
futures are not like they're not like a thing.
I
Like
feel
they
like
used to
there
be.
are, but I'm sort of blanking on them at the moment. I feel like all the kids are playing video games like Dark Souls and Elden Ring, and reading dark manga and watching dark anime and stuff. But like I know there's also goofy shit in there. There's goofy
Yeah.
YouTube stuff too. But I don't know. Yeah, if there's things that kind of have that aspirational vibe, which I think superheroes and Star Trek provided in my life anyway. Because I watched a lot of dark stuff too. I mean, I was watching Road Warrior and Paul Verhoeven dystopias and stuff growing up. So
But it's balanced out probably more.
it was more balanced out, I think. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to any continuation of Prodigy in any form. I will gladly check it out when that happens. But we won't have any more Prodigy to talk about in the immediate future. But we're gonna be back in 2 weeks. Dave and I, are you ready to revisit the Mutants of Marvel when they cross over with Star Trek?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Father, we talked about this a little off mic at one point, but like, we've said who the threat is in this, right?
Yes. So a while back a couple of months ago, I guess, Dave and I talked about the Star Trek X-Men crossover comic from 1996, in which the X-Men team up with Kirk and Spock of the Enterprise. Now we are ready to talk about the 1998 sequel comic that crossed over the X-Men with Captain Picard and the crew of the Enterprise E, actually. It's like a post-First Contact comic. But the fun thing here, a lot of people were excited who care about Marvel. A lot of people were excited for the villain Kang until let's just say a bad actor ruined things for people. But that's okay. You can actually get a cool Kang story in this comic. It is Captain Picard teams up with Wolverine and the X-Men to take down Kang from the Marvel universe. So there's never been a better time to talk about that. Yeah, I mean we have a Kang in Trek 2 with Michael and Sarah on the original series in DS9, but this one's a little bit more, I guess, exciting. He's got like time travel powers and stuff. So
I guess it's so surreal how we would see, at least the likeness of Patrick Stewart with the X-Men a few years before that officially came to pass.
I remember back in reading Wizard magazine in 1995 and people being writing in, they should do an X-Men movie and cast the Captain Picard actor as Charles Xavier. It's like people always wanted that. It's like that was one of the fan castings that actually came true.
Yeah. Every once in a while, something's just too written in the stars to not happen.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks after that will be our big Tex-Trek number 300 celebration.
Ooh. Yep.
Also, Dave's, is it like a retirement party? Is it like a...
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of some notable Star Trek parties. It's going to be like the Red Jack party. I was
going when Worf came back from the Batleth tournament and had the surprise party he didn't want, but that should be fun. Celebrating 300 episodes. So that's a big milestone for us.
Yeah, and I think we will reflect back thoughtfully and seriously on 300 episodes of Tex-Trek, and possibly be also goofy and stupid.
So a lot of fun stuff planned. Later this year, we're going to have a new season of Lower Decks. So I know Aaron and I are both hyped for that.
Yes.
And then plenty of Trek to have next year in 2025. We're not as much as we're used to getting, but we're still getting a Section 31 movie. Everyone is curious about that. And finally, the long-awaited Season 3 of Strange New Worlds. They gave us that Gorn cliffhanger right before the writers' strikes. So we'll finally follow that up.
We do know with that short, or the clip, we do know that people survived the Gorn.
Yeah. So the people who were not in that clip, those are the ones we should worry about.
That's true.
Aaron in the comments, Aaron Waltke, with a final note that Wesley met the X-Men as soon as he got his Traveler powers.
It makes sense. I would explore the multiverse as well if I had those abilities. So.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to jump to DC, I did a cover for the Star Trek Green Lantern crossover in Kelvin universe.
I own the issue that had it was before we were friends, but I have the issue of your variant cover. Just go.
Cool.
That guy sold me.
That's right.
So, but that'll be fun.
We're all tied together. We all have this connection.
Yeah.
So come back in 2 weeks for some more Star Trek X-Men crossover fun. And until then, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek, and follow Fathery on Twitter at txtrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.